Hello, my name's Ben,
And my name's Josh.
and welcome back to FPL Graduates. Welcome back to another video where we're going to be going through our Game Week 5 team selections.
Yeah, it's going to be a big game week, obviously, coming back from the international break. So we'll break down what our decisions are. Obviously, there's been a few injuries and stuff like that. So we're going to talk through all of those in this video. So we're going to start off with my team. Doing okay at the minute. I can't quite remember my rank off by heart, but I think we're inside, top 2 million easily. So it's not been bad. It started off pretty poor, but we're definitely on the way up, and had a couple of green arrows back to back. So in goal, Andre Onana, obviously me and Ben picked him, £5 million start of the season. United's defence has not been too great so far this season, only picking up the one clean sheet against Wolves. Brighton at home, I'm not expecting clean sheets here, don't get me wrong. I think save points potentially could be a route to points, but overall, not too much of a fan. I do have Matt Turner on the bench, who obviously faces Burnley at home. Obviously, there's been talk about him potentially losing his place to, I think his name is Vlachodimos. He's just signed from Benfica. So, yeah, 50-50 there. Ben, what's your thoughts on that? Would you start Turner over Onana? And then, obviously, worst case, the auto sub could come in there. Or would you just play Onana straight away?
I think I'd probably look at Matt Turner actually to start for this week, just because I think there is going to be one or two game weeks in between each of these two where Turner gets his last couple of starts potentially. And I don't like to think that Cooper's waiting for a mistake on Turner, but that could be the case that we're seeing here. And Turner's done well since he's come in so far this season. So I don't see any reason to drop him now. So I'd probably be more tempted to start him with the better fixture rather than bench him this week.
Okay, so moving on into defence, a little free back of Botman, Adoji, and Colwill. Obviously, Botman is still flagged. Current time we're recording this on Thursday night. We haven't had any press conferences, so the update on Botman is quite vague at the moment. We'll wait and see what Eddie Howe says on that. If you want to know all the latest injury news and all that good stuff, do follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We tend to tweet, retweet, post about all the big injury news that we hear of. So that'll be a big one there for me personally. So I need to pay attention to that Newcastle press conference. Adoji, Sheffield United at home, perfect fixture for Spurs. His attacking threat has been very, very good to start the season. Hasn't since game week 1. So yeah, he's been a fantastic asset to own. And look forward to hopefully a little haul against Sheffield United. And then Colwill to finish off, Bournemouth away. Not an easy fixture. Bournemouth do create a lot of chances going forward. So it'll be interesting to see whether Chelsea can keep them out. I think Chelsea defensively are a pretty okay defence right now. I know they've lost to Forest last week, but talking about one counter-attack goal there in the course of 90 minutes. So I think overall they are decent defensively. It's just a matter of time before they get the clean sheets. What's your thoughts on that back three, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the back three at all. It's a difficult one with Sven Botman because Brentford have actually been the best team going forwards in terms of XG created out of anyone. So it will be interesting to see how Newcastle do. I think this is the last real tough fixture before they go on a sort of better fixture run. I think Adoji's a really good pick for this week and definitely one that I'm considering bringing in. Sheffield United at home is a really, really nice fixture. And if you can afford to bench him for the next couple of weeks after that, I think it's a decent idea to sort of have some coverage there. And then Colwill, yeah, I think is Chelsea are a bit still slightly unknown quantity in terms of how good they actually are defensively. I think we'll see a lot more improvements hopefully going forwards and a better chance of a clean sheet. Bournemouth are an attacking side, so I wouldn't put your hopes too high up on Colwill getting sort of some decent returns. But I think Adoji there could potentially carry the defence this week.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. And then moving on into the midfield, little 5-man in midfield. And there's a few talking points in this midfield. And started off with Saka, Everton away. Obviously, played in the international break, played a lot of minutes against Ukraine, came on as a sub against Scotland. And there's been a little bit of chatter whether he has picked up a little Achilles injury that he sort of suffered quite a lot with last season as well. So again, another thing to watch out in terms of the press conferences with him. I'm sure he probably does start, but something to just be wary of just in case. If it was the emergency of him being injured, I would look to move him on this game week, just because I can, and there's money in the bank to do so. I'll probably look towards maybe someone like a Son, maybe a Rashford or someone like that, a little bit higher price point than him. Sterling, Bournemouth away, great fixture for them. Bournemouth, although they are good going forward, they are conceding a lot of chances as well. So hopefully Chelsea can capitalise on those chances. You know, they've been creating quite a bit, Chelsea, but just not capitalising, not scoring those goals. They sort of need that sort of finisher. I know, Ben, you own Jackson. What's your thoughts on this Chelsea attack? Are you coming off of it at the moment, or you still think, you know, the chances are there? It's just sort of a matter of time before they can sort of finish them.
Yeah, I mean, going forward seems a lot more appealing than their defense at the moment because they are conceding still a bit too many goals for my liking, but they are creating a hefty amount of chances going forwards. And I think it'll be a matter of time before this Pochettino team clicks. We know from preseason that it can take time with Poch teams, especially to click into gear when he takes management. So I think it is a case at the moment of being patient if you're looking to own these Chelsea players in the long term. If these Chelsea players are sort of short-term picks, you could really jump on and off them quite easily with the way they're playing at the moment. But we've seen sort of snippets from games that they can provide sort of 3+ goal games from an attacking perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And then to finish off the midfield, we've got Eze there, Aston Villa away. It's a tough fixture for Crystal Palace playing at Villa Park. But if anyone's going to really do anything in that Palace team, he's usually at the forefront of it. And then Bruno Fernandes, Brighton at home. Obviously, I know Brighton are doing really well so far this season. However, they have conceded a lot of chances and conceded in every game that they've played so far. So I think there are definite points there if you own Man United attackers. I wouldn't be too afraid of facing a Brighton defence that is leaking goals. Salah, Wolves away. A few people have asked, especially in our Patreon, should they captain Salah against Wolves? For me, I'd stick it on Haaland and keep it there. Wolves away. It's not the easiest of fixtures. Liverpool aren't as good away from home as they are at home. If it was at home, I'd be a little bit maybe more tempted to captain Salah, but because it's an away fixture, I'll be leaving the vice on him. Still a good fixture though. Looking for returns. What's your thoughts on that midfield, Ben, and maybe Bukayo Saka and the rumours on him?
Yeah, I mean, you can't really say too much on Bukayo Saka right now because even if he has picked up a slight knock, he could very well be back next week. But it does make an easy sell to get one of those Spurs midfielders in for a lot of managers. So I do anticipate that it could become a popular transfer out if we find out that Saka is indeed injured. As for the rest of the midfield, I see sort of Eze there as a potential move out in the weeks to come, just because of the almost a disappointment of sort of we haven't had as many returns as we thought we would, but it's a flexible one in the fact that you've covered pretty much every price point there that you can. So with this midfield, you can be pretty flexible on who you move to, and you can move to almost everyone using this midfield you got right now.
Yeah, it's a decent little set we've got on with the structure. Moving up to the forwards now, the Man City duo of Julian Alvarez and Haaland. Obviously, there have been quite a few players missing training at the moment for Man City. Kovacic, John Stones, just to name a couple. Alvarez obviously played for Argentina in an international break. They had a tough fixture against Bolivia away, which is a ridiculously amount high above sea level, I do believe. A few other Premier League players have been affected by that, like Romero, McAllister, just to name a couple as well. So whether he starts or not is always up in the air because he's a Manchester City player, but I'd be pretty confident that he does. He's played all 90 minutes so far this season. He's been one of their best players to start the season as well. And West Ham away, after seeing what they did last season, I think on the opening day there, I think Man City could be in for a good little game there at West Ham this season. What's your thoughts on City, Ben, and their attackers in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think Julian Alvarez as a player is a little bit more nailed on than sort of last season before that. And I do think Alvarez could have potential to get haul ability. There is risk, of course, with owning any City player, and we know that, but it's mitigated by the fact that there are less attacking players going forward for City that vacate the spots that someone like De Bruyne does. And Alvarez fits that bill perfectly. It's almost the perfect player to have in that City team. So in terms of assets, I maybe would even be tempted to wait one more week if you're looking to bring anyone in. Obviously, City are one of the first games at the game week next week. And you'll know who's starting. Forest at home is a nice one for next week. So if you are looking to bring a City player in, I'd maybe just hold off one more week. We know sort of Pep Roulette after international breaks can be ruthless. So if you give yourself a good chance of guaranteeing someone starting in game week 6 against Forest at home, you may get some decent points out of that.
Yeah, that 100%. Man City, like you say, it's a bit crazy, especially after international breaks. But definitely wait one more game. West Ham away is not the easiest of fixtures either, so I doubt there'll be too many hauls on offer this weekend. But moving on to the bench, Matt Turner, as we discussed, do I start him over Onana or not? That's a decision that I have to make before the deadline. Kabore, Fulham away, not the worst of fixtures there, but he will be definitely on the bench. Obviously, I still have a Stupinan there as well, Man United away. There is potential that he comes in over Botman. Obviously, if Botman's not fit, he'd probably be the replacement that I'd choose. So there is that there. I just don't, I can't really see too many returns there. I think, 1-2 pointers sort of thing for Stupinan. I know Brighton and him are good going forward, but equally they concede a lot of chances as well. So it's going to be an interesting sort of game, that one. And then obviously Mubama to finish up. He's obviously doing absolutely sweet FA on the bench at the moment. And if you are looking for a £4.5 million striker on your bench, if you're on a wild card, Cameron Archer is definitely the best pick of the bench at the moment. What's your thoughts on the bench, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of course more tempted to start Turner than you are right now. But I think, yeah, it may even be worth sort of switching around the Kabore and Estepinian on the bench. Like Estepinian, if you're going to want someone coming off the bench to get points, you probably want the higher owned player out of the two of them, just in case. But yeah, like other than that, like Mubama, not doing too much. And I think sort of like you said, there are better 4.5 million forward options, but a transfer like that is definitely a luxury rather than sort of a necessity. Okay, so moving on into my team, I've decided to start Matt Turner in goal this week. Burnley at home. I feel like from a defensive perspective is a little bit nicer than Brighton at home. Brighton at home for Manchester United. I do think there's every possibility both these keepers could come away with like 2 points. I just think Burnley aren't as good going forward as Brighton are. And I think Forest, they are a decent team this season. They brought in some really, really good players. So I'm hoping they can sort of kick into gear defensively, pick up a clean sheet, and Turner can pick up some points as a result of that. In the defence, we've got Chilwell, Ruben, and Estepinian. Now, I'm happy with 66% of this defence. Chilwell and Ruben Diaz, I'm pretty happy with. City, I see a lot of dominance from them. Defensive numbers are really good. I think the clean sheets are coming with them. Ben Chilwell as well, playing so attacking, so high up. I've had high hopes since the start of the season. He just hasn't hit the heights that I thought he would in terms of haul potential. It's all still there. It's all ready to sort of bind together. And again, I think this Pochettino, once they get their system down, once they start really playing well and sort of getting consistently more and more goals, I think Chilwell will be more and more involved in those attacking returns. Estepinian is the one that I'm not quite happy with in my team at the moment. I'm looking at potentially making one transfer. I've got one free transfer, 0.6 in the bank. And it would probably be a case of trying to transfer someone in to bench Estepinian because obviously they've got a nice fixture next game week, Bournemouth at home. So I'll be looking to capitalise on that. So Josh, what are your thoughts sort of first of all on the keeper and then the defence?
Yeah, like we discussed, Turner is obviously a good pick this week if he does start. I think Burnley are a decent side going forward. Obviously, not to the capabilities of Brighton, but I think there's definitely goals in that team going forward. So it'll be interesting. Forest, though, at home are a much better side than they are away from home. So that's something to think about. And like you say, with Estepinian, it's one of those picks that I think if he was like 40% less owned, a lot of people would easily move off him and transfer him out this game week because obviously the fixtures more long-term for Brighton are very difficult, but because he's so high owned, the chance of him potentially hauling, which he has done against top six sides. I remember at the Emirates last season, he came away with like a 17-point haul or something. So he's got the capability of hauling. So people, just a bit worried about that, I think. So it's a difficult one, but it'll be interesting to see what your thoughts are in terms of who you're going to potentially bring in for him.
Yeah, I've had a couple of thoughts about who I'm going to bring in. I'll probably talk about that a little bit more once I get sort of the end and to the bench of my team. But for now, we'll go into the midfield. And again, we have got another Brighton player. I'm much more happy with the midfield than I am with the defense. I think the midfield is a lot stronger than the defense. I think just because Mitoma, if we're going to talk about him, Brighton have the capability to score against Manchester United. I do believe that, and that's why I've benched Onana. I think Mitoma is that guy that plays really well against the higher quality teams because him himself is an elite dribbler, produces a lot of chances and therefore a lot of goal creating action. So I'm quite happy with keeping Mitoma in my team for this week. I do think obviously there's players without him who've opted for Mbeumo. I think Man United away is actually, from an attacking perspective, probably better than Newcastle away that Mbeumo has. So that's why I'm holding him for this week. Obviously, we touched on Bukayo Saka and his injury. If he is injured, I'm stuck in a bit of a predicament, really, with one free transfer and with one Brighton player that I want to bench. It leaves me in a tough spot, but I think I'll get around to that if Saka's out injured, and we'll see from there. Maddison, I'm really happy to own this week. He's actually on the vice captaincy. I think Sheffield United at home is a really, really fantastic fixture to have, and can't really complain about his attacking numbers so far. And I think for a lot of FPL managers, maybe including Josh, that might be the next target to go for to bring into the midfield. And then Bruno Fernandes and Rashford are a solid, firm keep for this week with Brighton's defensive statistics. This is why I want to be benching Estepinian in this week, because I do think Manchester United are going to score goals, and I don't think Estepinian is going to get too many points. Rashford looked really good over the international break. So did Bruno Fernandes, both sort of looking really creative, looking really direct, especially Bruno Fernandes with sort of however many assists he got over the international break. So, yeah, Josh, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this United attack, especially with Rasmus Højlund. He should be coming in and playing the 9 against Brighton, his first start. And what we saw of him against Arsenal, I think is a lot to be excited about if you do own Man United attackers, especially Bruno Fernandes, who's been like crying out for someone who can finish all these chances that he's creating, like we saw on the international break. Yes, against probably lesser quality opposition, but he got a goal and 3 assists against Luxembourg, and he had Goncalo Ramos up top, just bagging goals, and he just needs someone like that at United, and we'll see a lot more returns from him. Maddison, like you said, one of the best picks in the game right now. Sheffield United at home as well, which is really good. I wouldn't say that the next 2 fixtures are horrendous either. I know they've got Arsenal and Liverpool, but from an offensive point of view, especially in this Ange team, they're going to attack these teams. They're going to just try and outscore these teams. So having Spurs attackers is a really, really good benefit right now. Mitoma, for me, not as much of a fan of a pick from him. Obviously, United have Wan-Bissaka at right back, and we know how good he is as a 1v1 defender. We saw it in the FA Cup as well. It's last season where he's just sort of locked up Mitoma after being so good last season. So for me, not as good, but like you say, United's defense is poor. So if Wan-Bissaka's caught out of position just once, I think there is definitely a chance for Mitoma to score a goal there. And we touched on Saka already, but overall, I really like the midfield, especially James Maddison.
Okay, and then up top, we have kept with the same 2 that we've had for a couple of weeks now. We have gone Erling Haaland, captaincy, of course, against West Ham. I'm not going to risk going against him. I think just owning Maddison is enough for me as a little bit of a differential. I know his ownership's probably going to be a little bit higher than it was last week. And then Nicholas Jackson, we're keeping the faith for now. Of course, Bournemouth away is probably one of the last fixtures a lot of managers are going to be trusting him for. I'm hoping he can cash in on all of that XG that he's producing. Josh, we know your thoughts on Erling Haaland and a lot of FPL managers, but Nicholas Jackson, talk to me about him.
Yeah, I know obviously why people are looking to sell him, because he's obviously missing big chances. But I like Bournemouth away. He's getting in the right positions. I think it is a matter of time before he takes his chances. He's like a Darwin Núñez-esque type. He's going to accumulate a lot of XG before he gets some goals, which you just got to accept. Really, he's not crazily priced. He's £7 million. So I think you can allow him to miss big chances. For the price point, at least he's getting into those big chances, because a lot of strikers, especially the forwards in the game at the moment, there's not a lot of players that you'd like to move to at the moment. So I think he is definitely a decent pick for this game week.
Okay, so we'll move on to my bench and then the potential transfer plans for this week. So obviously we've got Onana in goal in the substitute position. We've got Rico Henry, George Baldock and Mubama. So the thoughts is that I don't think Brentford are keeping a clean sheet this week. I've got 0.6 million in the bank, which is a really frustrating amount of money to have in the bank, because a lot of decent defensive assets anyway are priced at 4.7 million. So if I wanted to transfer sort of anyone like a Doji in, I'd need to probably transfer out a Rico Henry or Estepinian to get him in. I wouldn't be able to go from Bulldog to him. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on the bench and then the potential transfer plans? That I can obviously go from Bulldog to like a Van der Ven if I wanted to. I could go to a Botman, say, from a Bulldog, or I could sort of get rid of Rico Henry. But then it's the other case of Brentford have some really decent long-term fixtures. So it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on that dilemma.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like you say, obviously Adoji is the prime pick, and you're pointing one off that in terms of Bulldog to him. I wouldn't be looking at Van der Ven just because I don't think Spurs are reliable in terms of their clean sheets. I know they've kept 2 so far this season, but they have conceded quite a lot of XG as well. So I think the clean sheets aren't really the reason we'd be getting Adoji. We'd be getting him for his attack and returns, where he has 2 out of 4 games so far this season. So yeah, it's a difficult one for me. If I was in your shoes, I'd probably maybe just play out this game where you can save that free transfer, because then it will make you more flexible going into next week. I think Estupiñán against United isn't great, but it's one of those ones where you might have to just bite the bullet.
Yeah,
for this week.
I'll be interested to hear, because I've had a crazy thought, and I know it's crazy, but we know that Brentford, when they play a top team, they go to a 5 at the back. Could it be out of the question to play Rico Henry out over Estepinian and sort of hope for an attacking return? Because realistically, both those players, I'm not expecting to keep clean sheets, but I'm expecting both those players to play rather attacking. And we know Brighton play a fullback, but Brentford do play a 5 back on occasions against the top teams. Is that something that should be considered as maybe a differential? And we know FPL managers are going to start Mbeumo if they've got him. I don't have Mbeumo in this position. Other managers are going to be starting in Mbeumo realistically against Newcastle. So is it out of the sort of possibility that it's not actually too crazy to start with Rico Henry? Maybe as coverage, you probably wouldn't be able to sort of get the same amount of returns, but interested to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Obviously, the main thing that you got to bear in mind is the effective ownership of Estupiñán. I think it won't be as high this week anyway, because he is facing United, and a lot of managers will probably choose to bench him. So we're not looking at the 60% owned that he is typically on the game. So it's just whether you want to fight that. For me, I don't really take effective ownership into consideration too much when making my decisions, because you're allowing other managers to sort of make the decision for you. Whereas I think, like you say, it's a very good chance that Rico Henry could get an attack and return against Newcastle if they play that 5 back. And that is the big is if they play it against Newcastle. Are they sort of the team that they would want to play it against? Because we know Newcastle don't necessarily play as attacking football as a City, United, Liverpool, those sort of teams. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it could be a risk worth taking, because at the end of the day, I don't think Estupiñán's going to get any returns anyway. So you're looking at, a net 0 if Rico Henry. I don't think Newcastle are going to go crazy against Brentford either.
Yeah, it's definitely one to consider then. But yeah, that is my team rounded up.
So that is our teams for game week 5. Let us know what your thoughts are in the comments down below on the small dilemmas that we sort of have coming up to the game week. Let Ben know what he should be doing with his defensive moves as well. Do you think he should be starting Rico Henry or indeed Estepinian? Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. And Ben?
I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
later. Have a good game week, everyone.